I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Fridays, we call the program the Healing Circle. We do this in conjunction with our partners and friends at African American Child Wellness Institute. My partner is Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya, leader of the Institute and the principal at Brakens Consulting and Psychological Services. She'll be with us in just a moment. We talked earlier today and yesterday about framing and creating a conversation in our community, reviewing what's happened last week with the hearings, the Senate hearings on the nomination of Katanya Brown Jackson by President Joe Biden to be the next appointee to the highest court of the land, the Supreme Court. And I don't know about you, but I'm still struggling with what I witnessed in this series of hearings, 3 days. And what I'm struggling with is this, I think, mean spirited, ill conceived, aggressive, and I have to say, racist drive to denigrate the candidate, Judge Jackson, and by extension, denigrate Black people, Black intelligence, denigrate women, Black women in particular. And so as I thought about this, the image just keeps coming up. This kind of reminded me of watching Derek Chauvin squeeze the life out of George Floyd. That's a graphic image, I know, but somehow I'm feeling and sensing and seeing a metaphorical parallel. I think about Judge Jackson telling one of her inquisitors, I've answered this question again and again and again, yet the inquisitor relentlessly refuses to take his knee off of the question, to take his knee off of her neck. She, in my point of view, speaking metaphorically again, is saying, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And there's this callousness that and viciousness under the mask of civility, under the mask of responsibility and duty. Duty, responsibility, a charade to allow the perpetration of something that is, I believe, inhumane, unjust, unfair, and clearly motivated by another agenda, not the agenda of justice, not the agenda of equality, not the agenda of inclusion, but rather the agenda that seeks to maintain this idea of white supremacist thought, of white supremacy, white control over Black bodies, and actually white patriarchy and patriarchal system, hierarchical organization in society. So that's a lot. That's what's on my mind. So I'm asking Dr. B and our guest today to respond, because I could be getting it all wrong. I'm just a reporter, but this is what I'm feeling, and I'm feeling I should say it, and so I have. I'm interested in knowing what our viewers think and feel as well. Did anybody see it the way I saw it? And if you are connecting with us through Black Press USA from anywhere around the country or around the world, if you're connecting up with us through the Inside News Facebook page, we'd love to have you be in the conversation. We're going to put up the StreamYard address, and you can sign on, and we can connect with you and sort of get a sense of what your question is. We can maybe bring you into the program. But with that, let me ask Dr. B to welcome you to the program. Dr. B, let me ask you to do this as well. Yesterday I had a great program because not only did I have our Senator Bobby Joe Champion on talking about housing and funding to reduce housing disparities, but I had some sisters and brothers from the Native community who at this moment are holding a rally over the state capitol, demanding a larger share of resources to address the health and wellness and equity and uh, social and development challenges of the American Indian, Native American community. So I want to shout out to them. And as I listened and engaged them yesterday, I thought about how you often begin this program in referring to and thanking the ancestors and the original inhabitants of the land. And with that thought, I'm going to pass the talking stick to you, Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya.
Thank you, Brother Al McFarlane. I am honored to be here. And as I sit with both you and Dr. Harriet Haynes, two very distinguished elders in our community, I'm proud to stand with you as we educate the public about what it looks like to be overcomers of abuse that's thrown to us in our country. And so, because this is a circle, we begin by acknowledging our ancestors and say ashe to them whose shoulders we stand on. We acknowledge that we are on the land that is owned and loved and nurtured by the Lakota people who have kept it and sacredly loved it, and that now the pollution and the invitation of others to share this land has left that whole community decimated, and they are the product of genocide, and yet they stand just like us as people whose bodies have been used for by people who owned us, and whose land was taken and used by people who owned it. So this land that we stand on is land that was stolen, and we are people who were stolen. And so what that means to us is that through that knowledge, we say thank you to the ancestors, thank you to the universe, thank you to the land and the trees and the earth that has contained us in spite of the assault. So today the topic is about the assault on women and celebrating women's leadership and our successes. Because despite all those things, we have been resilient. And so I say eshe to that. And we also use a circle. So we use a virtual talking stick. So as it's passed from one speaker to the next, we share our knowledge so that power is shared in the center of the circle. And that's why Black folks and natives and Indian use circle, because we believe that circle gives everybody access to the center, to the space of power. And with that, I'm going to pass the talking stick to Sister Harriet Haynes. I see that Sister Alicia Smith has joined us, but I'm going to Dr. Sister Harriet Haynes. You have the talking stick.
Yes, thank you. I'm honored to be here also today and to comment on this subject. I have to be honest and say that as I watched the hearings, at some point I thought, look, this is very interesting. I'm going to learn something about judges and what judges do. And I have to say that as I watched, and typically I'm not a watch television for a long period of time person, but as I watched and as a psychologist, I just sort of observed. And I particularly observed the nominee and how, with great dignity, she answered questions. And I felt so proud. I thought, wow, this is amazing that I've come this far to see this happen. But then as the questioning continued, I watched her face. And I have to say that I identified with her. I thought at this moment, she would probably like to get up and go punch somebody in the eye. But of course, she is too dignified to do that. But I watched as it went on, the way in which she breathed. And I watched as she took notes. I don't really think she was taking notes. I thought she was really writing, "Give me grace, God, to get through this." And I identified with that. I thought, yeah, she really needs grace to get through this because this is amazing. And then at one point toward the end of that particular day, I didn't watch yesterday at all. If there was a yesterday, I just thought, I cannot watch this anymore. And the reason I could not watch it anymore, because I felt myself being traumatized. And I thought, what is trauma? What is causing me trauma? And I think what is causing me trauma is to realize that this is the same. This is the same as my ancestors' experience. Pain, assault, being treated like not humans, not thinking, oh, we probably exhausted this conversation. And I thought about, like, how could that go on? How could a person keep saying, I don't really understand? And I'm thinking, you understand very well. But probably what you don't understand is that your brain has automatically switched into oppression. You don't see yourself as an oppressor, but your brain has switched into oppression. And I thought to myself, how did my ancestors get through this? How did people rise to the level that they've risen to? And I thought to myself, they probably have done what I have done throughout my life. And that is focus on the inner resources that I have. And I'll have to say this straight up. I thank God for my ancestors leaving the legacy of spirituality. Because without that inner sense of there's something greater than this, I don't think I would make it. And I noticed that someone commented that that the nominee had faith, and someone even attempted to maybe try to push her on faith. But I thought, our faith cannot be taken away from us. It is how we have survived, and I'm very appreciative of that. And I was very appreciative of her. I thought, if I could see this woman face to face, I would give her a strong hug and I'd say, oh my God, your ancestors would be so proud of you because you suffered the licks just as they did. I'll pass it on to Alicia.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. Please forgive me for being late, you all. I was coming out of another meeting here. And so I think that we're just talking about our initial reactions, if I understand it.
That's correct.
To the Senate hearings.
Alicia, introduce yourself first, because I didn't do that, but go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
absolutely. Alicia D. Smith. I work over at the Corcoran Neighborhood organization just in South Minneapolis, as well as I was elected to the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board in November. And so I am the vice president for the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board here in Minneapolis. And I'm a regular old human. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, a granddaughter, niece, and a host of other titles. The one that I wear the most proudly is that of mother, because it is so awesome. It changes your perspective on the world and certainly makes you appreciate your parents significantly different when you have the privilege of bringing life into the world. So
let me just add to that: warrior, creator, visionary, and doer. You are great, Alicia. Thank you for being here, for being humble, but you are a mover in our community. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. McFarlane. I've been watching on and off, but I have to control or limit how much I witness the audacity of basically white folks in this position when you have someone who is clearly not only qualified but overqualified, and the constant proving that we have to do of our humanity, right? If we're constantly proving that we're people too, and that is always disturbing to me. And certainly the level of indignation that I felt rising in myself as I watched it was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that this sister is sitting here with such grace and such poise. And certainly in my youthful ignorance, I don't know that I would be able to display the same. I hope that I could, but if I'm being honest, that like certainly my emotions may have gotten the better of me in many of those times, and not to the level of violence, but certainly to the level of you're no longer worthy of my presence, nor for me to answer these questions because many of them were quite ridiculous and totally irrelevant for the job in which she's interviewing for, if you will. And certainly we know that she arrived with a track record that showed and proved and while she was sitting there in the first place. And so it was just appalling. And I think most importantly, it's a reminder that we have not come as far as we hoped that we had. And we continue to see this display and reminder that these folks want us to stay in a certain place. And the browning of America scares them. And so anything that you can do to discredit the Black woman who brings life and gives life to all, certainly you must, because it continues to create division not only between the gap of Black and white, but for other communities of color that haven't figured out the solution lies within the Black community and that our freedom is absolutely theirs. And so it is an honor to witness such a moment, but it is very much a reminder of where we are and knowing that I too sit in this position as a Black woman, an elected leader, and a executive of a neighborhood that this many times I felt this. I felt that I felt the pain of those questions and the ridiculous nature of them questioning time and time again. And so it felt really personal. And I'm honored to see the grace displayed. But once again, we have to continue to display grace and forgiveness and be patient and be kind in a space where someone is saying, you're absolutely not worthy. And if I could do anything to physically stop you, I certainly would. And so it is an honor to witness her be so poised, and to see Brother Cory Booker to just honor and give life to that was so affirming in many ways. You don't see folks stepping out on a limb to do that and to honor their Blackness in such a bold way. It's become so taboo to acknowledge your Blackness when you're elected. We saw what they tried to do to Barack when he identified that Trayvon Martin could have been his son. So we know the dangers of saying, yes, I am Black. And yes, I see my mother, my aunt, my grandmother, my ancestors in you. And I thank you for this moment of joy that you're bringing to me in this moment. That was such a bold move for him. And I know many women in my circle, professionals and mothers and all sorts of walks of life that appreciated that. As many people may have seen that clip has gone viral on social media because we need the reminder from our brothers that they have our backs and that they see us. And so it was a big deal.
Alicia, I don't know. I'll take the talking stick with your permission.
Yes.
I don't know if you caught the very first remarks that I opened the show with, but I'm particularly interested in your take on this because you were so near to what I call ground zero, the geography, the place on our planet where George Floyd was murdered in a way because of social media that the world could witness, in a way that has created both a reckoning and a removal of the veil of authority and shown in its place the reality of the presence and consequence of white supremacy, of arrogance. And so I open saying that somehow, Alicia, watching, I think the gentleman is not the right word, the senator from Missouri in particular, attempt to grill and drill and drill I had a visceral, a gut reaction, a gut impression that this reminded me of watching the Derek Chauvin uh, uh, murder of George Floyd. That's my impression. And I ask you that because that's your neighborhood.
Yeah,
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Is that am I?
that's a fair reaction, Mr. McFarlane, and very much like on par. Like you said, because of social media, the world got to witness this, right? They couldn't sweep it under the rug and say that Brother Floyd was doing X, Y, or Z, or it was somehow his fault that he ended up murdered and lynched, um, while we were forced to stand by for fear of the lives lost on that day being additional citizens, even that of the small children that were witnessing it. And so it is reminiscent of many of the similar traits that they display when we talk about white supremacy.
And what I'm thinking about in particular, Alicia and friends, colleagues, Chauvin almost looked into the camera from time to time as he was denying the oxygen, extracting the life from a human being. And that's almost the same kind of callousness I saw in these members of Senate attempting to, from my point of view, derail, destroy, devalue, extract any meaning from the situation at hand, meaning the nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. That's kind of,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Mr. McFarland, it is reminiscent of when you talk about Derek Chauvin looking into the camera, and he was just so kind of laissez-faire,
That's
as
what I'm
he
talking.
literally murdered someone.
That's
It
what I'm
was as
talking
if he
about.
was thinking, what will I eat for dinner tonight, while his hands are in his pocket, and George Floyd is slowly, life is leaving his body.
And
I
you all
remember,
and you all see me doing this, and you can't do anything about
yeah,
it.
I
Yeah.
remember my grandfather, my great grandfather, before he passed away, he would tell me these stories. He grew up in the South in Arkansas, and he was born in 1903. And he would tell me these stories about like going and witnessing kind of these picnic environments. At the time when I was a kid, I'm like, Grandpa, a picnic is amazing. Like you get snacks and treats, and for him, his memory was not of a pleasant one, right? And this is not some long history that's far ago. We're talking about 4 generations removed for myself and my family. For his parents being slaves and he being born a sharecropper, the callous and the casual nature in which they destroy in almost a party like environment, the black body, right? Because that is what we were witnessing. We were witnessing them attempt to destroy and question not only her character but the physicality of the black woman in that space.
That's right.
And that was, yeah, it was just, it is alarming. It's really sad to witness. And this is certainly a great time for many folks, many of our elected leaders who don't live in black body, to take a stance to say at some point we all have to speak out and that our actions match, that we will no longer tolerate this supremacist way of thinking nor actions.
Very good. Let me grab the talking sticks, Sister Alicia, because I want to say a couple of things, and I see we've got a couple more guests that I'd also like to introduce. But the thing I wanted to say about that look on Chauvin's face and the look on the legislators who were asking the question uh, of um, of Sister Ketanji Brown Jackson, it was a defiant look. And that defiance said, I have the power and you don't. And what you're going to do with it if you're feeling jiggy jump. So it was all of that kind of defiant, you can't do anything about it, you're trapped, I've got you now mentality. And more importantly, you shouldn't be here. And years ago, some of my colleagues taught me that when we say picnic, it really meant pick a nigga. And that's the drop off of what the word really was for. Because if you ever see pictures of the lynchings and the hanging, they were having baskets of food, taking pictures with the brothers who were hanging from the trees. And that strange fruit that they were talking about was just a joyful time. We get one. Let's go pick one. And so that fear and the transgenerational experience of seeing the abuse of power in our very eyes stimulated the trauma reaction in many of us. And even if we may not have had that kind of direct experience of it, it's that bearing witness piece. For us as Black folks, when places in the past, we've seen that kind of behavior where we were harmed and we were helpless. We were harmed, we see somebody, witness somebody being harmed, and then we're helpless. And that's the piece I think we need to talk about, how we come and turn that helplessness into, instead of traumatic stress, traumatic growth. How do we take that and reframe it so that we can use it for empowerment? And with that, I'm going to pass the talking stick to Brother Oliver, who I hope will pass the talking stick to Sister Charlene LaChapelle. So I'm just going to pass it on to you, Brother Oliver. And Sister Harriet, you turn sideways now, so you may want to.
Your camera has changed, Sister Harriet.
You made it. Yeah, you got to turn it back around.
Well, some of the comments that I wanted to share, you've shared already. I did applaud Cory Booker for his comment. Got him pretty emotional when he did it. And I thought it was right on time. And to me, one of the things I appreciated about him doing it, I felt like it was a way to be able to tell them off, and to be able to say, I see what you're doing, and it has no effect because she deserves to be here. And you're not asking questions that, are relevant to, her situation. You're coming up with questions. I mean, so when they were talking about her trying to equate what the sex offender was doing. The sex offender was looking at pictures that he's 18 years old and looking at pictures that of other people, mostly his age, but also some people who were younger, but mostly his age. And that's what she was making a judgment about. She, let the punishment fit the crime, but let's not overdo with in some of the laws. They ended up overdoing what they needed to do to be able to deal with it. And the other thing too, with some of the senators that are asking ridiculous questions, the intention wasn't to interrogate her about her record. They wanted to stay away from that. What they wanted to do was to do to her what they felt was done to them with other people who Trump had appointed. Mitch McConnell being duplicitous in his behavior and, not letting Merrick Garland come up for a vote for the Supreme Court when he had the right to do so. The other thing was the fact that when, Ruth Bader Ginsburg asked for them to wait a little bit before they ended up putting somebody else in her place. Or the other thing with Brett Kavanaugh, not really having a full investigation of his behavior. And they didn't like being challenged on. All they wanted to do was to win. And so knowing that and understanding where they're coming from in their judgment, and also Holly of all people, he should be confronted for his January 6th behavior. So what's fascinating to me is the fact that it wasn't all that it was supposed to be. You had people that were asking irrelevant questions. And with the Republican Party wanting to burn books, wanting to, have men be in charge of women's bodies and choices, and not let women have a say so in what's going on with the function of their bodies when they know themselves better. You just dismiss them, you know? And again, I'm glad Alicia came up with the comment that she did about reflecting over what her grandfather said. I've been saying the last several weeks, I reflected over the things that my father taught me. My dad was a little older than your grandfather, though, but he would tell me stories about what it was like for him to grow up in South Carolina, and my mother would tell me stories about what it was like for her to grow up in South Carolina, and they were sharecroppers back then. But hearing those stories helps me to. It's still unpleasant what you see, but it helps me to negotiate and survive because I have those stories and I know what they went through. And even though things are still painful for me now, I can endure and continue to survive because I have those stories, and it helps you to see what the nature of things, and to see how ruthless some white people can be, but I also think about what they said with regard to Clarence Thomas's wife and the comments that they made about her with regard to January 6th. And so, and I listened to that, then listened to the comments of the people that were the interrogators, and never questioned. They didn't honestly question her qualification because she's more qualified than most of the people that were there, and some of the people that were appointed and that are sitting on the bench now. So I kind of had to take it for what it's worth, and just to be glad that we got the votes to be able to, vote her in. And the one question that I have is, what are we going to do about Clarence Thomas, given the fact that his wife did some things that were inappropriate? How do we question that?
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Brother Oliver. I was just going to say, let's pass the talking stick to Sister Charlene if you're done.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
afternoon.
Oliver. I'm going down to the Carolinas. I'm moving. And thank God it's not what it used to be.
Right.
As far as what happened to, to our sister who was attempting to answer those horrible things that were not questions at all. They were simply more than things designed to inflame, to incite. And what they were really looking for was, as they like to call us, the angry Black woman to explode on the screen. Mm-hmm. But she had news for them. Her level of intellect and emotional intelligence and knowledge of the games that they were trying to play, she checkmated them. Instead, they got a little upset because they looked as stupid as they were. Mm-hmm. They looked like they were attacking an innocent lamb who didn't deserve to be attacked in that manner. They looked vicious, like animals. And they showed that there was no nonpartisan, nothing like that at play when it came to the Republican Party. It was the usual smear and attack campaign that they try to discredit. Well, it's kind of hard to discredit the president of the Law Review and Harvard law graduate, magna cum laude, and all the other accolades, and Harvard times 2 degrees, undergraduate and law degrees, and all of her accomplishments. And in fact, these same, I don't want to say clowns, but had approved her for her last position as a judge. So what has changed? The only thing that has changed is the rampant racism was showing. And I don't know, I thought I was looking at a pack of vicious dogs attacking a piece of meat, a poor little lamb, and they were just fangs and teeth just visible. But I was so proud watching her, so proud. And I thank Cory Booker for what he said, because yeah, he did tell them off. He did make it obvious what they were doing. For anybody who was confused, he said it. She deserves to be here in every way possible. She deserves to be here more than many others sitting on the bench. And I'm going to digress to Clarence Thomas's wife. He doesn't deserve to be here. He never did deserve to be there. That was not a full investigation of what happened to Anita Hill. And we will not mention the other person who had a partial investigation for what he did to not one, but 3 or more women. But oh my God, Clarence Thomas's wife, I want to say she's an insurrectionist. There he is on the Supreme Court, and he has vowed to uphold the Constitution. And there she is operating on the sides, front, and back to try to supplant the Constitution, to put in the will of she and her cronies, and a failed president who twice impeached. They want to allow him to stay in power. Well, you know what? All I can say is everything that's going on right now, all the bombings that are going on in the Ukraine, the fact that Putin had the audacity to try this trick, we can all credit Donald Trump with it, and the Republicans who stood by and allowed him to do everything that he did to put this ball in motion. As they say, Putin thought that NATO would disperse, that it would at least cause a split. And he thought that Biden probably would say, well, I don't want to get involved. Well, we don't want to get involved, but we also don't want to watch innocent people slaughtered. That was what happened to us when we came here in slavery. Innocent people were slaughtered. Those innocent people were us. And it's still happening. So as far as I think most American people, we have seen ugliness at the highest level. And what also hurt me was when those African students were trying to get on trains, and they had walked for over a week and they were not allowed on. And I'm thinking, to receive compassion, we must show compassion. And you are being killed, and Africans too. Everybody who was over there, those missiles and bombs had no names on them. But the fact that they didn't allow for our humanity, I was upset. I was not just upset, I was angry that you want us to send money, you want us to send troops, you want us to send munitions, planes, but yet you don't think our life is worthy of having an equal chance of being saved. So with that, I'll pass the talking stick back to Dr. Barada or Al.
I think I'll let Al hold it for a minute, and then I'm going to do another round listening to the sisters in terms of their own experience and personal experience and experiencing the assault as Black women, and celebrate how they maybe some 1 or 2 things that they think they did to be in that space of being resilient and overcoming. But I'll pass it to Brother Al McFarlane first, in case he wants to get us started on another set of questions. We'll take this talk public. Let's keep it going. You have the talking stick, my brother. I'm giving it to you. And you're mute. We can't have that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll take the talking stick, but I'm going to pass it straight over to Dr. Harriet Haynes. And I want to say that I so appreciate all of you for your presence, your leadership, your vision, and and the comments and direction that you are providing, the elucidation, illumination coming out of this conversation. And so I simply want to hear more. And I want to listen. So, Dr. Harriet, I'm going to pass the talking stick back to you.
And we can hear you. You're good.
Yeah, we hear you.
If a question was asked of me, I missed the question because there was something
No,
going on.
there was not a question.
What was the question
just
that was
passing.
asked?
There was not a question, Dr. Harriet.
Can you hear
I
me?
just was saying, I hear you. Yeah, we hear you.
Okay.
But I was saying,
I can't hear anything at this point from you all.
okay. Let me pass it back to Alicia Smith then. I want to listen to you and Dr. B and Shirley.
And I don't see Al.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what you asked me. There we go.
Can you hear now?
I can hear you, Bravado. What was the question?
It was just for you to tell more about your experience as a Black woman experiencing this assault on Black women, and then what have you done to overcome it? You're frozen.
Mm-hmm. I think there's some bandwidth or connectivity issues. So until we get that, why don't we ask the same question for Alicia?
Can you hear
Alicia,
me?
Now we do. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear us?
Okay, I'll do it quickly. I'm a psychologist who retired from the University of Minnesota some 40 years ago, and had a lot of different roles there. And I've, was president of the Minnesota Psychological Association at one point, and have been active locally, nationally, and
Oh no. You're frozen.
on the state level.
Mm-mm.
So I think there is some connectivity or bandwidth issues.
We'll come back to her.
Yeah.
Let's go to Sister Shirley, but we definitely got to come back to her because she's got a lot to say. Sister Shirley.
And I guess I would say that.
There I am. I'm unmuted. Well, I was the last person to talk, but I'm excited about going down to the Carolinas because I was fearful when my daughter went down 16 years ago. And I guess you all know why, just as Dr. Williams said about what was going on down there when his parents grew up and all those things. Well, I had a surprise when I started going to visit. It was more prejudice up here than down there.
Mm-hmm.
I was never made to feel so welcome as I was when I would go down there. And I think they say about 3,000 people are moving in, new people are moving into the Carolinas every month. And by the way, Judge Pam Alexander and her husband Alex are down there, and others. So as far as me feeling under attack, I hate to say it, when I come back here, I got to watch it. I really have to watch it because it's a whole different psyche. They blame, they like to say, oh, they're prejudiced down south. Newsflash, they got the same people up here, only they are acting it out more. Yes, most of the people who are really outrageous are not near the metro area. The metro area, oh my God, it's just where I'm going to be working. I'm going to say 80% of the people on that job are Black. And the white people there were very nice and welcoming to me. Every time I go there, I'm blown away. I'm blown away. They have a Black mayor in Charlotte, a lot of Black people on the city council and in other positions of power. Why is that important? Because our view gets heard. our voices are heard, and some of the policies being made take into consideration things that affect us and our lives. And according to my daughter, when I talked to her yesterday, and she was watching what was happening to our Supreme Court nominee, and she said, "Wow, Mom, that reminded me when I was up in Minnesota, the way they gang up on you." She said, "I'm not used to that anymore."
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's a shame. I'm wondering if Dr. Harriet can talk now.
She looks like she's Dr. Haynes.
Uh-oh,
We
still got issues.
you're still freezing up. Let's pass the stick to Sister Alicia, and we'll go back to Dr. Haynes.
Oh, wow. I feel strongly about what I witnessed. It is not, as I mentioned earlier, it's a familiar space. What we witnessed, in particular, just here in Minnesota, in the metro area in general, and so it's hard to watch and even harder to live, and so the resiliency factor that we must implore, as out of a space of survival, to live and to not be in a constant state of anger or frustration, is key to us sort of having a space of peace, essentially, because it isn't something that is relegated to those in positions of what is power or position, but it's everyday. It's your everyday life. Your everyday woman, Black woman, who traverses through the city at any given moment.
Yeah.
You can get it whether you work at your local fast food restaurant, or if you're a Fortune 500 CEO or CFO or an elected official, you certainly get it. And what Minnesotans are good at doing is the microaggressions. Um, this is the land of 10 million microaggressions. That's what I always tell people. So you got the land of 10 million microaggressions, and then you got the north side, the land of 10,000 nonprofits that still haven't figured out how to serve the people that live there in a true and authentic way. And so resiliency becomes key, and so does having a circle of people, trusted people that you can go to that can guide you on how to navigate this without it turning into anger, which can be counterproductive towards moving the needle for growth for the future generations of people to come, because it's important. And as Miss Sherlyn had mentioned, when you go to the South, the difference in the tone and the energy is, it's almost baffling. You're just like, I can't believe that I'm in the South. This isn't reminiscent of what I expect, because what I expect is for you to be much more aggressive, like in a bodacious kind of way that Minnesotans wish that they could be, right? That if they would just say, hey, I don't like you because of A, B, C, or D, certainly we may get somewhere. I think people forget that we know how to live in a space where you don't have to like us. We're not seeking your validation. We're not seeking a relationship in that regard, but we certainly can still be productive and get things done. And so that is always fascinating to me. And so, it's an honor and a privilege to share space with you all, and to hear your stories and to hear your wisdom. It doesn't fall on deaf ears. I'm certainly taking it all in and will employ it in my everyday life, because it's critical. It's critical for these types of conversations to happen. And if folks had it their way here, we would never get in a space with the six of us together, because we become dangerous. We become dangerous to the mission of what they have in store for us. So this becomes liberating in so many different ways, to just share space with five other people who are Black and brilliant and unapologetic about it, and understand that we can exist in any circumstances. We may not choose all of them, but we certainly will come through. And so with that, I will try to pass the stick back to Dr. Harriet. I don't hear you, Dr. Haynes.
Dr. Haynes, are you muted?
No.
Nope. If you want to type something in the chat, that's fine as well. We'll have to have her back because she's got lots to say. And I heard her talking about that 40-year history. And what she didn't talk about is how much work and how it was for her at University of Minnesota back in the day, and how she walked up in spaces of power and made some choices that not just helped her, but helped other people who look like her. So I'm one of the benefactors of her loving spirit and her excellent reputation and her hard work. And I do want to make sure we bring her back again. We only have about 6 more minutes, so I guess I can give the brothers a couple of words. But as we get to the end, I can take it on home in the end. And if I can grab Sister Dr. Harriet, I'll see if I can let her say something before we get off of here. But I really thank you so much, Sister Charlene, and Sister Alicia, and Elder Mother Dr. Harriet Haynes. So I'm passing it now to Brother Al McFarlane.
I want to just take a minute to say that I'm reading a lot. I'm in a sort of a reading frenzy right now. And the book I'm reading, one of several, is one called The Eloquence of the Scribe, just by a philosopher, writer, brother named Kwe Arma. I'm reading about 5 of his books right now, 3 of them novels, 2 of them books of essays. But they talk about an African way of knowing. And why it's important to bring that up is that that's what Dr. B has been building this conversation around. African-centered, African way of knowing, African way of healing, and about how we navigate and create institutions that serve our people, serve our interests, and in doing so, we present models and strategies and programs that serve humanity. To be conscious that the impulse to create something different is the right impulse, and to believe that we have the capacity and the authority to do so, that in the doing of creating something new that comes out of the very, very old, the ancient African ways of knowing, modified by and boosted by our grasp of technology, of the march of science and the march of human understanding, boosted by our intention of being connected to each other and creating systems of knowledge, knowing, and doing that require all of us to be together, requiring us to be us and to be together. And that in distinction to supporting a system that is hierarchical, that is patriarchal, and is based on violence. And the system that we're living in is one that is a violence-based and violence-driven system where what is right really depends on who holds the firepower. Mm-hmm. So I think we're talking about and talking in ways that question the legitimacy and the efficacy of that for the planet long term. And we're beginning to talk about not just short-term needs and gains, which are important, but the conversation that we're having now is the beginning of a conversation of where we will be in 100 years, in 500 years, and in 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. And if we begin to have our thoughts centered in the long arc, it means the immediate steps we take today, the nearsighted steps, are already in alignment with futures that we have decided we have an opportunity and an obligation to author, to create. So with that, I'll pass the talking stick back to my brother, Dr. Oliver Williams.
I think the thing that I get so much from our conversation is listening to the wisdoms. And then I think another thing is the fact that as we have conversations about it, the fact that there's a synergy, where I agree with the things that my brothers and sisters are saying, and I think that that can be healing too.
Mhm.
That we find our voice in the voices of others. We have similar reactions to things that we experience and we witness. I think the big thing is how do we negotiate those challenges? Because we get those microaggressions on a regular basis. But the question is, do we handle it in silence or do we handle it collectively?
Mm-hmm.
And if we can deal with it collectively, the consequence is that we don't see ourselves as unique. And it reminds me of what racism must have been like. Because I have conversations with my son, uh, and then I remember having conversations with my dad. So my life was easier than my dad's life,
Hmm.
and my son's life, although he's growing, he's 31 and going through things, it's still different and better than what my life was at his age.
Mm-hmm.
And but so and then as sad as I get by seeing the judge go through what she had to go through, I'm also uplifted because she's there,
She did it.
and all she has to do is just to be.
Mhm.
So it's dealing with the pain, and I also think about you know uh, things that we went through and things that we may have been denied being of a certain age. And the young people, I mean, when Obama became president, I had this reaction, because up until the last minute, I was trying to figure out how they're going to screw him out of being president. But when he got there, I was uplifted. And I had to take a business trip to New York and went to Harlem and went to Sylvia's
Mhm.
for a meal and saw pictures of Jesse Jackson, Obama, and Al Sharpton together,
Mhm.
and that was uplifting. But the thing that the balance in terms of what the conversations must have been like, but also to see the celebration of what was happening in Harlem and the things that they were selling as mementos for the occasion. So and things that may have meaning to me that don't have as much meaning to people that are younger than me. And but I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. You know, the one thing that I feel is I feel grateful that I can see the growth and the progress that we've made, but I feel the sadness about the things that we had to go through to get there.
Thank
So
you, Brother Oliver.
yeah.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful perspective. And just wondering if Harriet Haynes can hear and say a word as we close. If not, then go ahead, Sister Harriet. I see you speaking, but we can't hear you. So let me close with this, and I'm going to ask you to. I know our time's up.
Mhm.
I just want to take another minute to dedicate this poem to the sisters. It's called "Phenomenal Woman" by Maya Angelou. It says, "Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say it's the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, and the curl of my lips. I'm a woman phenomenally, phenomenal woman, that's me. I'll walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man the fellas stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me like a hive of honeybees. And I say it's the fire in my eyes and the flash of my teeth, the swing of my waist and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman phenomenal woman, that's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much but cannot touch my inner mystery. And when I try to tell them, they say they still can't see. It's the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breast, and the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. So now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk too loud. So when you see me coming, it ought to make you proud, because I say it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the pain of my hand, the palm of my hand, and the need for my care, because I'm a woman phenomenal woman. That's me. Happy Women's History Month. See you at the next time we hook up on the Healing Circle. And thank you so much, Shirlene, for honoring us as you're leaving town with this Healing Circle visit. We will seek you. We will find you wherever you go.
We'll stay connected.
Just it's not like we're threatening you like a mafia, but we will keep up with you.
Well, we are Zooming, so that's good everywhere.
You'll be with us. That's right.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.